This is the Mesa Boogie Studio Preamp. Its lead channel is based on the Mesa Mark II C+, which many consider to be Mesa Boogie's masterpiece amp. This also has a terrific clean sound, but right now I'll just be showing you the lead channel. First, I'll explain all the core controls with the graphic EQ turned off. I'll start off by talking about what I believe is the most important feature of the amp. Is these two switches, the lead bright switch and the lead fat switch. These two, when turned on, bring out the true voice and character of the amp. The fat switch adds a little bit of gain, it shifts the treble knob down to the upper mid-range, and it also adds this fat, rich character to the sound. And in my opinion, that's the key feature of this amp. I have this switch on almost exclusively. The lead bright switch adds a beautiful, shimmering, searing character to the sound. When using the bright switch mixed with a high setting on the treble knob, you might want to trim the high frequencies a bit on the graphic EQ. You rarely want to have any control all the way up on 10 on this amp. You want to sort of blend each one moderately, and that's when they react to one another in the best way possible. The bass and treble knobs are the main controls for carving the sound in different ways. They don't behave like your average bass and treble controls. They sort of interact and counteract one another as one is set higher than the other. For example, when treble is set below 6, the bass normally gets a little flubby, so you want to turn the bass down when you're using a lower setting on the treble knob. The treble control adds gain, sustain, and has a more focused top end when in higher settings. The treble knob behaves similar to that of your guitar's tone knob, where when it's all the way up, it's letting all the high frequencies through. When it's all the way down, it has what they call that closed sound. The bass knob adds an extra dimension to the sound. It's a very round and warm character unto itself. You need to have at least 2 on the bass knob to hear the true voice of the amp. The sound is a bit hollow without it, but if you're going for a more Marshall-y kind of sound, a 0 setting will help get you there. The bass knob can get out of control very quickly. I haven't had much luck with this one above 6, and even 6 is pushing it. The low end gets a bit flubby when you're up in the higher range of the bass knob, and it also reacts differently to wherever the treble knob is. The mid knob is the strangest control on the amp. It doesn't behave like you'd expect. When it comes to mids, the 3 middle sliders on the graphic EQ, as well as the fat switch, give you a lot of options for sculpting the mid-range in different ways. But this middle knob basically acts as a secondary treble knob and a secondary bass knob a certain way. And when you're using the treble knob in a lower setting, like down around 3 or 4, you can bring a little bit of top end back into the sound by turning the middle knob up or all the way up. You just have to be careful that when you have the middle knob up in the higher range, it does make the low end a bit flabby and harsh, regardless of where the bass knob is set to. I like to leave the middle knob around 5. There's 3 knobs on here that control your volume. First, I'll show you the least important one. It's output level. There's 2 of these because there's one for each output on the back. There's left and right outputs on the back. I'm just using the left side right now. I usually have this between 2 and 4, depending on where I'm sending the signal. When I'm using my power amp and cabinets, I usually have it around 2, 2.5. When I'm sending it to my computer, I need a little more. I'm usually around 3 or 3.5. Everyone's going to have different results with these, but I usually like to just leave it in one spot and use these other ones here for actually controlling the volume. We have lead master and we have master. The master knob is the volume knob for the clean channel, but when you're in the lead mode, they're both active. The one I use mainly for volume is lead master, but you can use either as they both pretty much do the same thing. One of the other things that makes this amp very unique is that you basically have 2 gain knobs. Volume and lead drive. Volume basically controls how much signal is fed into the lead circuit. I've found that the gain from lead drive is a bit smoother sounding, where when you play with the volume knob, you tend to clip the signal faster. So if I had to pick one, if I was going to turn one up, I would pick the lead drive first. Now you have to be careful with these gain knobs, because when you have either of them over 8 or so, there seems to be a lot of noise in the signal, and the low end gets a little flabby. So rather than, say, moving one of them up to 7, take each one and maybe move them both up to 5. So take a little more up on each one rather than just cranking one of them. So if you keep both of them out of the higher extreme of the knob, the signal won't clip and you'll have less noise, and the low end will stay tight.